What if the truth you have always sought was never truly lost, but was deliberately hidden from those who were never meant to find it? Imagine a secret so profound, so utterly transformative, that entire empires were built upon its suppression. A teaching whispered in the sun-scorched sands of the ancient world, not of worship, but of awakening. This was the most guarded message of the Master known as Jesus, a revelation not for the masses, but for the individual soul ready to remember its own. Divine origin. For centuries, this knowledge has slept beneath layers of dogma and doctrine, a forgotten legacy sealed away by those who feared the power it could unlock within you. Today, we pull back the veil on that very secret, because if you are seeing this, if these words are finding you now across the vast ocean of time and information, it is not by accident. It is a sign, a signal, breaking through the noise of a sleeping world from the original unfiltered source of all consciousness. It is a call intended only for you. Have you ever felt it? A quiet, persistent echo in the deepest chambers of your being. A sense that the world you see is not the whole story. A feeling of being a traveler in a foreign land, carrying a memory of a home you cannot name, a light you cannot describe. This is not a flaw in your perception. It is the most honest part of you speaking. It is the resonance of an ancestral memory, a truth buried so deep within your spiritual DNA that it survives only as a feeling, a longing for something more. This feeling is the first crack in the prison wall, the first ray of light filtering into a room that has been dark for millennia. The systems of this world are designed to distract you from this feeling, to label it as fantasy or discontent, but it is, in fact, the compass of your soul, pointing the way back to a truth that was stolen from us all. It is the beginning of the great remembrance. The knowledge that was hidden was not a set of rules or a new religion to follow. It was a mirror that when looked into did not show you a sinner in need of salvation from an external God, but a divine being, a lost spark of infinite light, temporarily veiled in flesh. This hidden knowledge revealed that the material world itself was a labyrinth, a shadowy imitation of a far greater reality, and that our purpose here was not to blindly obey the rules of the labyrinth, but to awaken to our true nature and find our way out. Christ, in this forgotten tradition, was not a king who demanded fealty, but an illuminator, a guide who came to remind us of the map we already hold within. He came to whisper the secret of our own divinity, a truth so empowering that it would dismantle any institution built on fear and control. Why would such a truth be buried? Because a soul that knows its own light cannot be controlled. A spirit that remembers its source cannot be enslaved. This ancient mystery is not merely a historical curiosity, it is a living transmission. The forces that buried these truths 2,000 years ago are the same systemic energies that seek to keep humanity asleep today. They build structures of distraction, noise, and division, all to prevent you from the silence required to hear the call from within. But a signal, once sent from the source, never stops traveling. It simply waits for a receiver to be tuned to the right frequency. Your curiosity, your feeling of being different, your unshakable sense that there is a deeper meaning to your existence. These are the signs that your receiver is tuning in. The discovery of this message at this exact moment in your life is a synchronicity of cosmic significance. It is a response to a question your soul has been asking for a very long time, perhaps for lifetimes. The monad, the indivisible and true source of all, is calling its lost fragments home. This journey into the heart of a forbidden revelation is not for everyone. It is for those who are ready to question everything they have been taught and to bravely face the light of their own magnificent identity. The path ahead is one of stripping away illusions, of unlearning the programming of empires, and of remembering a wisdom that flows not from books, but from the silent knowing within. We are here to be your guides through the forgotten corridors of history and the inner landscapes of your own consciousness. We will uncover the lost gospels, decode the hidden symbols, and piece together the greatest story never told. If you feel the pull of this sacred mystery, if the echo of this lost truth resonates within your soul, then your journey of awakening has already begun. Subscribe now and join the few who are daring to remember. This is more than a channel. It is a gathering of souls answering the same ancient call. To understand the truth that was hidden, we must first leave the world we know. We must travel back through the corridors of time, beyond the marble halls of Rome and the gilded cathedrals of a later age, to a place of sun-scorched earth and shimmering heat. Imagine the first century, not as a monolithic world of a single faith, but as a vibrant, chaotic, and spiritually fertile landscape. In the dusty roads of Judea and the bustling intellectual markets of Alexandria, Egypt, the air itself was thick with mystery and revelation. This was an age of seekers, where the teachings of the Nazarene were not yet a creed set in stone, but a living, breathing current of energy, interpreted in 100 different ways by mystics, philosophers, and prophets. It was a time when the search for God was a deeply personal, often perilous journey into the unknown. Among these myriad voices, one current flowed deeper and more secretively than all the others. It was a path not for the masses, but for the few who felt the call to look beyond the veil of the material world. They were known as the Gnostics, a name derived from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. But this was no ordinary knowledge, not the kind gathered from books or lectures. Gnosis was a knowing that bloomed from within, a direct, intuitive, and profoundly intimate experience of the divine. These were the keepers of what they believed to be Christ's innermost teachings, a sabiduria ancestral, passed not in public sermons, but in quiet circles to those whose souls were ready to receive it. Their Gospels, texts like those of Thomas, Philip, and Mary Magdalene, were not stories of history, but maps of the human soul, guides for the journey of awakening from the dream of the physical world. Here, in this fertile ground of spiritual exploration, the great conflict was born. It was a collision of two opposing visions of reality, a silent war for the soul of humanity. On one side stood the Gnostics, who taught that the kingdom of God was not a place in the heavens to be earned after death, but a state of consciousness to be realized in the here and now. They whispered of a truth that was both terrifying and liberating, that the world we see was not the creation of a perfect, benevolent God, but of a lesser, flawed entity, a blind craftsman they called the Demiurge. And we, humanity, were not its fallen creatures. We were something far more ancient, far more magnificent. We were divine sparks of light, fragments of the true, unknowable source, the monad, who had fallen into this labyrinth of matter and forgotten our origin. On the other side, a different power was beginning to coalesce. It was an organized, hierarchical structure that sought to unify the disparate spiritual currents into a single, controllable faith. For this nascent institutional church, which would later find a powerful ally in the Roman Empire, the Gnostic vision was not just heresy, it was a threat to its very existence. Think of what this hidden knowledge implied. If divinity was an inner reality, a spark to be fanned into a flame within each individual, what need was there for an external authority? What role was left for priests, bishops, or emperors to mediate a connection to God? A soul that remembers its own light cannot be ruled. An individual who experiences gnosis becomes spiritually sovereign. What power is more feared by an empire than a population that no longer needs to be saved by it? And so, the Great Suppression began. In the 4th century, as this new religious empire solidified its power, a systematic campaign was launched to erase the Gnostic legacy from the memory of the world. It was a war waged not with swords, but with ink and fire, Their sacred texts were declared forbidden, their teachings demonized as the whispers of darkness. Councils were convened not to explore truth, but to define it, to build a canonical wall around a single version of the story, and cast everything else into the shadows. Imagine the scene: ancient scrolls, containing generations of profound spiritual inquiry, being hunted down and cast into flames. The light of 1,000 libraries of esoteric wisdom being extinguished, replaced by the rigid shadow of a single authorized dogma. The silence that followed was not one of peace, but of erasure. A memory was being deliberately stolen from the human family. But a truth, once spoken, can never be entirely unspoken. It leaves an echo. Though the texts were burned and the teachers silenced, the knowledge survived. It went underground, living on in secret societies, in the coded language of alchemy, in allegorical myths, and in the quiet traditions passed from master to disciple, far from the watchful eyes of the new order. It survived not in stone temples, but in the unseen architecture of consciousness itself. The architects of the Veil had built a prison for the human mind, but they could not destroy the key, for the key was encoded within the very essence of the prisoners. The feeling of being an exile in your own life, the unshakable sense that you are carrying a memory of a home you cannot name. This is the ghost of that stolen truth, the ancestral memory of your divine origin calling to you across the centuries of imposed silence. The system that was built upon this forgotten legacy was designed for one purpose: to keep you looking outside of yourself for answers, for validation, for salvation. It created a world where you were born flawed, in need of an external savior, forever dependent on a power structure that claimed to hold the exclusive keys to heaven. This was the ultimate inversion of the original message. The illuminator who came to show us the light within was transformed into a distant king who demanded worship from without. The path of inner awakening was paved over, replaced by a road of blind faith and obedience. But what happens when the foundation of that road begins to crack? What happens when a truth, buried for millennia in the desert sands, begins to push its way back to the surface, called forth by a world that is finally ready to remember? For nearly 2,000 years, this ancestral knowledge was not a memory, but a ghost, a whisper on the wind, a feeling without a name. The architects of the new order had been thorough. Their fires had consumed the scrolls, their doctrines had silenced the teachers, and their histories had written the Gnostics out of existence, painting them as madmen and heretics. For centuries, the only proof of their existence came from the venomous pens of their enemies, the very bishops and theologians who had orchestrated their erasure. The victors wrote the story, and in their story, the deeper truth was a footnote of falsehood. The world was taught to believe the Gnostic Gospels were lost forever, a footnote in a forgotten war. But the desert remembers. The earth itself is a library, and it holds its secrets until the world is ready to read them. Imagine the year 1945, a world reeling from a global war, a humanity shaken to its core, searching for meaning in the rubble of its own making. In the dry, sun-baked earth of Upper Egypt, near the town of Nag Hammadi, a local farmer named Muhammad al-Saman is digging for fertilizer near the base of a cliff. His shovel strikes something hard, not a rock, but the smooth, curved surface of a large, sealed clay jar. He nearly shatters it, thinking it might contain gold, but a flicker of fear stays his hand. What if it holds a jinn, a spirit trapped for millennia? Hesitantly, he breaks the seal. Inside, there is no gold, no spirit, only a collection of 13 leather-bound books, their papyrus pages brittle with the passage of 16 centuries. He did not know it then, but what he held in his hands was not a treasure of the earth, but a key to the heavens. It was the moment a cosmic lock, sealed in the 4th century, finally turned. The universe itself had decided that the time for silence was over. What was written on those ancient pages? It was the thunder of a silenced world. Here was the Gospel of Thomas, not a narrative of Christ's life, but a collection of his secret sayings, each one a profound koan designed to shatter the conditioned mind. It began not with a promise of a future kingdom, but with a direct challenge. The kingdom is not in the sky or in the sea. It is spread out upon the earth, but people do not see it. It is inside of you, and it is outside of you. Here was the Gospel of Philip, which spoke not of sin and repentance, but of spiritual union and the restoration of the soul to its original, undivided state. And here, most shockingly, was the Gospel of Mary, a text that portrays Mary Magdalene not as a redeemed sinner, but as Christ's most beloved disciple, the one to whom he entrusted his most profound teachings about the nature of the soul and its journey through the realms of matter. These were not historical records. They were manuals for ascension, roadmaps for the spirit, penned by those who had walked the path of gnosis. And the proof did not end there. Once the Nag Hammadi library was translated, a new light was cast upon the old world. Scholars began to re-examine the writings of the early church fathers, men like Irenaeus of Lyons, who in his massive work Against Heresies had meticulously quoted and described Gnostic beliefs in order to refute them. In their desperate attempt to destroy this knowledge, they had inadvertently become its most detailed archivists. Their furious denunciations, intended as a final nail in the coffin of Gnostic thought, now read like a witness statement, a grudging testament to the power and complexity of the very ideas they sought to bury. They were the shadows that proved the existence of a brilliant hidden light. The system, in its fear, had preserved the evidence of its own great crime against the human spirit. This forgotten legacy also survived in code, hidden in plain sight. It flowed like an underground river beneath the surface of official history, nourishing the roots of other mystical traditions. You can feel its echo in the allegories of the alchemists, who spoke of turning lead into gold, a metaphor for the transformation of the dense, material human into a being of enlightened spirit. You can see its symbols woven into the arcane imagery of the tarot, a visual map of the soul's journey of awakening. It whispered in the secret circles of the Cathars in France, who were brutally exterminated for believing in a dual reality and the inner divine spark. This truth was too powerful to be destroyed. It could only be driven into the shadows, where it continued to be passed down through hidden lineages, a secret fire kept alive through the longest, darkest night of the soul. Ultimately, however, the most profound proof is not found in a clay jar or an ancient text. It is not something you can hold in your hands, but something you can only feel in the deepest chambers of your heart. Why does this story, this hidden revelation, resonate so deeply within you? Why does the idea of being a lost spark of divine light feel not like a new idea being learned, but like a forgotten memory being stirred? This feeling is the ultimate evidence. The historical findings are merely the external confirmation of a truth your soul has always known. The discovery at Nag Hammadi was a signal sent out into the world, but it is the resonance within you that proves you are a receiver tuned to its frequency. The truth was never truly lost, because it was encoded within you from the very beginning. And now, the time has come to read the manuscript of your own soul. The dust of Nag Hammadi has settled, but the silence it broke continues to ripple through time, reaching you now, in this very moment. For the discovery of these ancient texts was never meant to be a mere historical footnote. It was the turning of a key in a lock that has kept the human spirit captive for millennia. These were not merely texts. They were mirrors, held up after a long and starless night, designed to reflect a truth so profound that it had to be buried in the earth to survive. And the image they reflect is not of a forgotten teacher or a distant past. The image they reflect is you. This is where the ancient mystery ceases to be a story and becomes your own living reality, the intimate narrative of your soul's journey through time and forgetting. Have you ever felt like an actor on a stage, reading from a script you did not write, playing a part that feels foreign to your very essence? Have you ever looked out at the world with its frantic pace and hollow promises and felt a deep, unshakable sense of homesickness for a place you cannot name? This feeling, which the systems of this world would label as melancholy, anxiety, or discontent, is in fact the most sacred and honest part of you speaking. It is the Gnostic truth living within your very cells. It is the ancestral memory of the divine spark, the fragment of the monad, remembering the light of its true home and recoiling from the cold shadows of this material labyrinth. This feeling is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the first sign that you are beginning to wake up. The architects of the veil did not disappear in the 4th century. They simply became more sophisticated. Their empire of control evolved. The Demiurge's world is no longer maintained by overt decree, but by a far more subtle and pervasive force: noise, the endless scroll of distraction, the constant hum of manufactured desire, the shouting match of opposing ideologies. All of it is a carefully constructed static field designed for one purpose: to prevent you from ever achieving the inner silence where the truth can be heard. The system thrives on your forgetting. It needs you to believe that you are only this body, this name, this collection of fleeting thoughts and desires. It needs you to keep looking outside of yourself for validation, for meaning, for a savior. Because the moment you look within, its power over you dissolves like smoke. The call from the monad, the true source, is not a thunderclap from the heavens. It is a quiet frequency beneath all the noise, a subtle vibration that only a finely tuned soul can perceive. It speaks in the language of synchronicity, in the sudden moments of clarity that feel like a memory bubbling up from a deep well, in the unexplainable resonance you feel when you encounter a truth like this one. Your presence here, listening to these words, is not an accident of an algorithm. It is a response. It is the echo of a question your soul has been whispering for lifetimes, finally being answered. The signal is breaking through the static, and your inner feeling, that quiet pull of recognition, is the proof that you are receiving it. But to truly hear this signal requires a form of courage that this world does not teach. It is the courage to turn away from the noise, to question the very foundations of the reality you have been taught, and to face the profound implications of your own divinity. The path of gnosis is not one of joining a new crowd. It is often one of learning to stand alone, anchored in the authority of your own inner knowing. It is a journey of unlearning, of peeling back the layers of programming and identity that have been placed upon your eternal spirit. Are you prepared to let go of the comfortable story of who you thought you were, in order to remember the magnificent truth of who you have always been? The greatest lie ever told was not that God exists, but that you are separate from it. The system built upon the forgotten legacy of the Gnostics taught you that you were born flawed, a sinner in need of saving, forever on the outside looking in. But the hidden knowledge reveals the opposite. You are not a human being seeking a spiritual experience. You are a divine, spiritual being having a temporary human experience. You are not a creature of the Demiurge's flawed earth, petitioning a distant king. You are a lost royalty of the monads. Realm of light, and the Illuminator came not to rule you, but to awaken the memory of your own crown. This revelation changes everything. It reframes your entire existence, not as a trial to be endured, but as a mission to be undertaken, the mission of remembrance. But if this is our true identity, a divine spark trapped in a material illusion, then Christ's most secret teachings must have contained more than just this diagnosis. They must have contained the cure. Hidden within the cryptic, sayings of the Gospel of Thomas and the allegories of the Gospel of Philip is something far more practical and powerful than philosophy. It is a map, a set of instructions, a forgotten science of the soul, detailing the path of return. And that is the next layer of this mystery we must now uncover together. The map has been found, the scrolls, resurrected from their 1600-year slumber in the Egyptian desert, have offered us a glimpse into a forgotten world, a lost spirituality. We have seen the conflict between the Gnostics and the rising empire of dogma. We understand that we are a divine spark, a fragment of a true and distant God, lost in a material labyrinth. This knowledge alone is a revelation powerful enough to shatter worlds. But what if this understanding, as profound as it is only the outermost layer of the mystery? What if the discovery of the problem was never the final secret? What if the true forbidden knowledge was not the diagnosis of our condition, but the precise and terrifying nature of the prison itself and the identity of its true wardens? Prepare yourself, for the path we have been following is about to descend into a depth from which there is no return. This is the turning point, the moment where the historical mystery becomes a living, breathing, cosmic reality. The Gnostic texts, when read with a soul that is beginning to remember, reveal something far more unsettling than a simple theological dispute. They were not just writing philosophy. They were describing a cosmic architecture of control. The Demiurge, the flawed creator of this world, was not merely an abstract concept. He was the first and most powerful of a class of beings they called the Archons, a Greek word meaning rulers or princes. These were not demons in the traditional sense. They were described as parasitic, inorganic entities, psychic forces that rule over the material world and actively work to keep humanity in a state of spiritual amnesia. They are the architects of the labyrinth, and the veil is their greatest creation. The most shocking revelation hidden within these texts is this: the Archons feed on our energy. Specifically, they feed on the low-frequency emotions generated by fear, guilt, division, and blind, unconscious worship. They are cosmic farmers, and humanity is their crop. They constructed this reality as a closed system, a loop of incarnation and forgetting, to ensure a perpetual harvest of the very spiritual energy that we leak when we forget our own divinity. They are the unseen forces that whisper doubt into your mind, that amplify the noise of the world to drown out the silence within, that build systems of belief designed to make you kneel and give your power away to an external image, an image they often create in their own likeness. They are the gatekeepers, the cosmic toll collectors who stand between the human soul and its return to the monad. What does this change? It changes everything. It means the great suppression, the war waged by the early institutional church, was not merely a human power struggle for control over a narrative. It was something far more sinister. The architects of the veil, the bishops and emperors who burned the Gnostic Gospels, were not the masterminds of this prison. They were its middle management. Whether conscious of it or not, they became the perfect instruments of the Archons, establishing a planet-wide system that would generate a constant supply of fear, sin, and guilt, the Archons' favorite food. What if the very systems we turn to for salvation are, in fact, the most sophisticated bars of our cage? What if praying to a distant, judgmental God was never a path to freedom, but the very act of locking your own cell from the inside and handing the key to the warden? This ancient knowledge offers a terrifyingly accurate lens through which to view our modern world. Look around. The archontic influence is no longer hidden in ancient texts. It is the operating system of our reality. It is the endless cycle of fear broadcast through our screens, the manufactured divisions that turn neighbor against neighbor, the hollow consumerism that promises fulfillment but delivers only emptiness. It is the voice of the algorithm that learns your deepest insecurities and feeds them back to you, keeping you scrolling, distracted, and spiritually drained. The Archons are the invisible fences of the mind, the programming that tells you that you are small, that you are alone, and that your only hope is to conform to the system. They thrive in the noise, in the chaos, in your forgetting. The evidence for this is woven throughout the most secret of the forbidden Gospels. In the Apocryphon of John, the Illuminator reveals to John the entire cosmic history, detailing the arrogant creation of the material world by the chief Archon, Yaldabaoth, a blind and ignorant being who foolishly declares, "I am God, and there is no other God but me." In texts like the Hypostasis of the Archons, we find detailed accounts of their nature, their appearance, and their methods of deception. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene is not just a spiritual discourse, it is a coded manual. It describes the soul's ascent after death, passing through the hostile realms of the Archons, each one challenging the soul, trying to trap it with its own unresolved fears and attachments. Mary, having achieved gnosis, teaches the other disciples how to answer them, how to pass through their gates, armed not with faith, but with the unshakable knowing of their own divine identity. This revelation leaves us standing at a precipice. We are no longer simply seekers of a lost truth. We are prisoners who have just become aware of the prison walls and the nature of our guards. We now understand that the forces aligned against our awakening are not just historical dogmas, but active conscious energies that have an interest in keeping us asleep. The memory of our divine origin is not just a comforting idea. It is the one thing that makes us indigestible to them, the one frequency they cannot stand. The map we found at Nag Hammadi has shown us the layout of the labyrinth. But a map is not enough. The Illuminator did not come merely to describe the cage. He came to show us the door. The question that now echoes in the silence of this revelation is, where did he hide the key? The labyrinth has been revealed. The nature of its silent wardens has been named. We are left standing at the final door with a question that echoes in the deepest chambers of the soul. Where did the Illuminator hide the key? And here, in the final, breathtaking turn of this ancient mystery, lies the most profound revelation of all. The Illuminator did not come to hand us a key, for there was nothing to hand. He did not point to a secret location or a sacred object. He came to deliver a message so simple, so radical, that it had to be buried beneath 2 millennia of dogma and fear. The key was never lost. The key is you. Your consciousness, awakened to its true nature, is the one frequency that the Archons cannot withstand. Gnosis, the direct and intimate knowing of your own divine origin, is not a map to the door. It is the force that dissolves the door, the walls, and the entire prison from within. The greatest secret was not that we were trapped, but that we have always carried the power to unmake the cage, simply by remembering the light we are made of. This truth does not call you to a war against the shadows, for to fight the Archons on their own terms, with fear and anger, is to feed them the very energy they crave. Instead, it calls you to a revolution of the soul, a quiet and radical act of inner alchemy. The path of return is not a battle, it is a remembrance. You begin to reclaim your sovereignty, not by striking out at the world, but by turning inward and fanning the divine spark within you into an unquenchable flame. The Archons cannot feed on a soul that is anchored in love, compassion, and the silent knowing of its own source. The systems of control cannot hold a mind that has unplugged from the noise of the world and learned to listen to the whisper of the monad within. The forgotten legacy of the Gnostics was not a religion. It was a spiritual technology for transmuting the lead of our conditioned, fearful self into the gold of our true, eternal spirit. This is the great work, the only work that truly matters. How then do you begin to turn this key You begin by withdrawing your energy. You consciously stop feeding the systems of distraction, division, and fear. You turn away from the endless scroll, the manufactured outrage, the hollow promises of a world designed to keep you looking anywhere but within. You cultivate silence, for it is in the stillness that the signal of the monad can finally break through the static of the Demiurge's world. You become the silent observer of your own thoughts and emotions, realizing that you are not the passing storm, but the vast, unchanging sky behind it. Each moment you choose peace over anxiety, clarity over confusion, and love over fear. You are recoding your own reality. You starve the wardens by refusing to generate their food, and in their starvation their hold over you withers and dies. You do not break out of the prison. You become a frequency in which the prison can no longer exist. This journey is the answer to the call you have felt your entire life. That quiet sense of homesickness, that unshakable feeling that you are part of a far grander story, was never a fantasy. It was your ancestral memory, the homing signal of your soul, vibrating through the density of matter. Your resonance with this hidden knowledge is the confirmation. The monad is not a distant god calling to a lost subject. It is the ocean calling to its own drop, the sun calling to its own ray of light. The purpose of your awakening is not merely for your own liberation, but for you to become a living transmission of this truth. You become a lighthouse in the phantom sea of the material world, a stable point of light that silently shows other lost sparks the way home, not by preaching, but simply by being. The Great Forgetting was an age of looking for God in temples of stone and on thrones in the sky. The Great Remembrance is the dawn of finding God in the silent temple of your own heart. This is the universal lesson that transcends all names and traditions. Your consciousness is the ultimate battlefield, the ultimate sanctuary, and the ultimate key. The power to create worlds and the power to unmake prisons resides not in the hands of gods or demons, but within the infinite, untapped potential of your own awareness. The entire cosmic drama, with its illuminators and its archons, plays out on the inner stage of your soul. Now that the silence has been broken and the veil has been lifted, we ask you, what ancient truth is awakening within you? Share your feeling, your memory, your recognition in the comments below, and let us witness this great remembrance together. This revelation is not an end, but a beginning. It is the start of your conscious journey home. If this message has stirred the light within you, subscribe to this channel and join this gathering of sparks. We are a sanctuary for this remembrance, a place to explore the depths of this forgotten legacy together. Share this transmission with another soul you believe is ready to hear the call, for the signal grows stronger with every heart it awakens. The ancient wisdom is returning, not through a single savior, but through a collective awakening of individual souls. For the Great Awakening is not a distant event to be awaited. It is the silent, courageous turning of your own inner light, a dawn that begins within and ends by illuminating the entire world.